Mike Debnar is a CX champion. He's a retail expert. He spent a lot of his career working for 7-Eleven, 180,000 stores, developing the whole customer experience 2.0. The concept of the guest and the guest experience, the mobile wallet, loyalty programs. Mike is now with Medallia. He's been there for 10 years as VP Retail Advisor. So Mike, if I can invite you to come up on the stage. And a big round of applause, please, for Mike.
Hey, thanks, Rob. Appreciate it.
It's a clicker.
Oh, thank you. All right. Hey, it's great to be here. This is my first time to Saudi Arabia. It's been a fantastic experience. Let's just get it out. I am from Texas. You could probably hear that accent. We call it the Lone Star State. We're awful proud of our state, and you know, I'm just really happy that I'm here. It's been a great experience so far. I'm going to tell some stories today. I like telling stories as it relates to customer and employee experience. So I'm going to tell you some stories about what I went through. I've been with Medallia for 10 years. I've seen a lot of customers. I've sat with a lot of customers. I've gone and experienced all of their brands. I like going to experience brands and see what they're all about. So that's where I'm going to come from with this talk. And, you know, before Medallia, as Rob mentioned, I worked for 7-Eleven. Now, it's a funny story about working for 7-Eleven because as a kid, it was my favorite store in the whole world. I went there with my buddies. We rode our bikes there. And it was a great store. It's the most innovative store on the planet. We went there. We've got you know, our frozen drinks, our Slurpees. We bought our baseball cards there. It was a meeting place. And we loved it. And I had a lot of good friends that we met there. And those friends wanted to do aspirational things in their lives. I had friends that wanted to be the president. I had friends that wanted to be doctors. I went home and told my parents, I want to work for 7-Eleven. You can imagine how proud they were that their son wanted to work for 7-Eleven. Well, I made it happen. And when I got to 7-Eleven, did a lot of different jobs, but the one that was most key was I led innovation and customer experience. Isn't that a great combination? Aren't customers really the ones that drive innovation in brands? They drive a lot of it. So it was a really great combination. I was recruited by 7-Eleven. It was great. Let's see if we can get this moving here. Okay. It was great. I remember on my very first day, you have an orientation, right? And I go in, and they're telling me the history of the company, and they're telling me about how they operate today. But the one thing that I remembered when I went home on that first day and told my wife, as I said, baby, they got 13 private jets and an FBO. And she said, what's an FBO? And I said, I don't know, but it sounds good. You know what it turned out to be? A fixed-based operation. They had their own terminal at Love Field in Dallas, Texas. And I thought, man, we made the right choice. 13, can you imagine 13 jets? Like, who has 13 jets? They must be doing well. Those 13 jets were hiding this. What I like to say is shift happens, right? And this is the reason I'm on this stage today. This graph from 2004 to 2014 is the reason that I'm here in Saudi Arabia. I'm going to tell you why. Because this could be any metric in any brand, right? Any company could have this. It could be a metric, it could be a time frame, and we all go through this. And we know we all go through this because environments change, customers' needs change. This happened to be a decline in business, right? Over 10 years. And it turned out that everybody was trying to figure out what was causing this decline in the business. And nobody could figure it out. We tried remodeling stores. We tried new product assortment. We tried all kinds of things. And nobody could figure it out. And I was just a manager in IT at the time. But something happened, is that I used to take the magazine, The Economist. You remember when we used to have paper magazines? They came in the mail. They also sold them at 7-Eleven. But I took the magazine, The Economist, and I was flipping through that one day in 2012, and I saw an obituary of all things in The Economist. And it said, "Exit Albert Hirschman." And I said, what does that even mean? So I read it, and it turns out Albert Hirschman is an economist. And this economist wrote a book called Exit, Voice, and Loyalty. And when I read the first part of this book, this is what jumped out at me. He said, every firm is conceived. Conceived, that means since the founder's inception of the idea. Conceived to be permanently and randomly subject to decay and decline. Well, I thought that might explain that graph that has me on this stage today, right? A decline in business over 10 years. Why does that happen? And Hirschman said, well, it's pretty simple. He said, it's exit, voice, and loyalty. He said, when brands and the customers become misaligned, the customer has two active choices. They can exit. That means they just don't come back and do business with you. Or they can do this beautiful thing called voice. They can tell you what's going on. They can give management time to react. And it's a really beautiful thing. It's the reason we're all in this room today, because we know that that customer's voice is powerful. And we also know that the employee's voice is powerful as well. So that was what I read, and I was working in IT. Can you imagine? I looked after the POS system, you know, the technology in IT, but I had a good relationship with the CEO. So I made an appointment with the CEO, and I said, I think I might have it figured out. There's this guy named Albert Hirschman. He's like, what are you talking about? And I said, we're not listening to our customers. We weren't. We didn't even give them the opportunity to voice to us. We opened that up. We gave them the opportunity to voice. And what happened? Well, I got a promotion. I got to be the head of innovation at 7-Eleven, which, by the way, is a huge brand. I'm sure you all know it, and that was a really great honor. And I got to do two things. I got to do innovation and customer experience. So what did we do? We opened up the channels for customers to let us know what was going on. Why do we have this decline? What is going on here? And we opened up those channels primarily through a mobile app. We called it the 7 Rewards app. We partnered with Medallia. That's how I got to know Medallia. We partnered with Medallia because we said, we need a platform that can manage a global brand with billions of transactions, millions of customers. And so we partnered with Medallia to capture the feedback, bring it into Medallia, and the most important part of that is that we said, we're not going to keep this great, valuable information, this beautiful voice of the customer. We're not going to keep it in the hands of few. We're going to put it in the hands of the many. And we let all the employees have access. And guess what they did? You know what they did. They started making those small changes every day, every customer, every experience, and the small changes added up. And we ended up turning that around. We turned that 10 years around, and we started winning. We started winning customers back. We started getting, not only winning the customers back, but our employees were thrilled and excited that they got to be a part of that. They saw their own fingerprint on the success. And we opened up more channels. We said, let's just get more of this beautiful voice, because it is beautiful. Let's get more of the voice. So we opened it up. We started doing social. We did our contact center. We did everything we could to hear from as many guests as possible. And the outcome was fantastic. We had some of the best years that the company ever had. We owe it to the employees. They're the ones that made those small changes every day. It's a hard job winning in retail, but they did it, and they loved it, and it made all the difference in the business. And oh, by the way, our customers gave us some great ideas. They said, oh, you know what you should do? Like, it's really convenient if we could just have product delivered to our house. We started doing delivery. They said, oh, we'd love we love the ability to walk into a store and use our phone to pay for the product and do self-checkout. We did that, and we gave them credit for it. We gave the customers credit for it. So it was great success. Great success. Thank you, Albert Hirschman. Go look him up when you get home. Look, just do a Wikipedia treatment on it. You'll see Exit, Voice, and Loyalty. I didn't go into it in detail. I could talk for 3 days about him. Y'all want to stay here for 3 days and talk about Albert Hirschman? Just kidding. All right, so we got Albert Hirschman, and then I thought to myself, well, let me look back. Let me be a curious fellow. When else has this happened? And I said, uh-oh, man, it happened again. The same company, 1930 to 1940. Next. Same line.
Yeah, he just.
It's like, whoa, that's amazing that it would happen twice to the same brand. So it turns out that 7-Eleven, the company that we all know now, started off as an ice company. You heard me right, ice. They manufactured blocks of ice that went into what we called an ice box, and that kept food preserved. And in Dallas, Texas, it's hot there. Probably not as hot as it is here, but probably similar. Dallas, Texas, ice was a luxury item. A luxury item. And people had ice boxes, and they wanted to keep their food preserved. And a company called Southland Ice Company got started in Dallas, Texas. And they produce ice. This is what it looked like. This is what an ice dock looked like. And you would either bring your horse and buggy to this thing and get your ice block, or they would deliver it to you. And it was innovation. It was a luxury item. But you know what happened? 1930, 1940, there was a company called General Electric. Man, they're a mighty innovator. And guess what they invented? They invented a refrigerator. Why do you need ice? I have a refrigerator. What are we going to do? Disruptive innovation. Well, here's where the story gets really interesting. Because once again, an employee, yes, an employee, we actually know his name. They called him Uncle Johnny. He worked at one of these ice docks in Dallas, Texas. And you know what he did? He listened to his customers the old-fashioned way. He talked to them. And one of the unique things about these ice docks back in the 30s and 40s was they were open on Sunday. Most things weren't open on Sunday. But they were allowed to be open. And the customers said, we'd love to have some other items that we can't get because the grocery's closed. We'd love some, like if you could carry milk and bread and eggs. And you know what Uncle Johnny did? He went out and sourced them. He broke all the rules. He didn't listen to corporate. He went out and got them. And he started selling milk, bread, and eggs off this ice dock. And you know what he invented? He invented the convenience store. That was the very first convenience store on the planet. And this one man, by listening to customers, invented the convenience store. A $2 trillion business today.
He's a good
Powerful. The power of the customer voice and the enablement of employees and activation of employees to make a difference. So that's two stories. Two stories of decline. Two stories of employees listening to customers and turning that decline around, making it a win. Okay, Uncle Johnny was one person on an ice dock listening to customers. Now, we have technology to help us listen to customers. Look at these numbers. Millions, billions of voices, of signals, so much goodness. Customers expressing themselves to companies and brands. Here's what we like. Here's what we'd like you to do. This right here is transformation. This right here is adaptation. This is a slide. Those are numbers of adaptation. Customers are always changing, and you have to change with them. That's a fact. I love the misquote of Charles Darwin, right? So Charles Darwin, very famous, right? Wrote Origin of Species about evolution. And Charles Darwin is often misquoted of saying survival of the fittest. Have you heard that? Survival of the fittest? He never said it. What he said was survival to those that adapt to change the fastest. These signals, this slide, is the adaptation to change. And that's where we're going to pivot, right, into the future. The future vision of where we're going. I always thought vision goes both ways, doesn't it? Let's look into the past and see what happened, what we can learn, and let's apply that to the future. And the future vision of experience, both customer and employee experience, is really around, once again, new ways for customers to express themselves to you, to the brand, to the company. And we can see that there's a notion of structured data, right? And we're not going to get too technical here. I'm not a real technical guy. We're structured data. That's like asking you a question. How helpful was the employee, 1 to 5? Structured, right? You can only answer 1 to 5. Pretty structured. And for a long time, that was kind of the extent of the data for CX. And then somebody had a great idea. I want to think that's our founders that said, let's leave an open text box. Let's let customers tell us stories about their experience and see what happens. And guess what they did? Customers said, we'll tell you all kinds of stories about our experience. To a rate of about 75% of customers leave open text. That's unstructured data. And then we invented text analytics that could understand those patterns in that data and make sense of it. Well, that's just accelerating now. Now we have, as you know, we have all kinds of new devices. We have location data, right? I mean, does your phone know where you are at all times? I bet it does. We have social. How many social networks are people a part of? A dozen? And of course, we have that old standby where that customer and employee still connect, called the contact center, and those valuable conversations that happen at a contact center. So now we know that we have lots and lots of unstructured data, and it's gold. It's gold for what we call text analytics. It's gold for the next generation. Am I going to say the acronym? I guess I will. I wasn't going to say it. AI, right? It's gold for that as well. Now, I have to tell you that, because I like to sprinkle in, when I was younger. So when I was a little boy, I had a grandmother. She was great. She was hardcore, man. She was real hardcore, but she loved customer experience. And everywhere she went, she had an opinion. You know that kind of grandmother? She had an opinion on everything. And she went to these brands, and she wanted to give them feedback. You know how she had to do it? She wrote a letter. Can you imagine sitting down and writing a letter? That's how hard it was to give feedback. There was no other way to do it. So she'd write a letter to these brands, to the grocery store, to the shoe store. It didn't matter. She'd write a letter, and she had pretty good handwriting, but a lot of times I couldn't read it. And then she would put it in an envelope, and then she would find an address. How do you find an address without the internet? I don't know. My 22-year-old daughter said, Dad, that's impossible. I'm like, yeah, probably is impossible. But she found the address, put the thing in the envelope in the mailbox, and away it went. And who knows if anybody ever read it. But I'll tell you this. She did have one of those letters read at a board meeting at Purdue Chicken. A board meeting. My little old grandmother, at a board meeting, they read her letter. Man, that's powerful. Point is, we have a lot more ways for our customers to tell us about what's going on, and it's going to get even more and even better in the future. All right. So we're moving from this remember we talked about the 1 to 5 question, the survey. We're moving from that to this notion of omni-channel. Where are customers engaging with you? Can we be there, engage with them in that moment? And the answer is yes. We went through a couple of those examples. So we call that the omni-channel listening experience, let's say. And listening is an interesting term because it could mean actually listening to a customer and what they have to say, but it could also be listening to the signals and behaviors of a customer, which is also valuable. And we're moving to this action. How do we take action on all of these signals and feedback? And that's really where the power is going to be in the future. So you need actions, not dashboards. I love this. Our chief strategy officer and chief executive officer, this is their slide. And I agree with it. As more I see that we're integrating technology into employees' workflows, right? It's happening all over the place, that they're not going to be sitting in front of computers. They're not going to be sitting in front of dashboards. We have one brand in the States that has all their employees, it's a retail brand, all their employees have an earpiece. They don't sit in front of computers. Like, it's talking to them all day long. The AI is talking to them about what's happening in their business, and it also makes them product experts too in just about everything that's in that store. So we can see acceleration of that we're going to get the insights and the necessary data to employees in a very convenient way that potentially won't always be a dashboard. So the idea is we're moving from listen and respond, what we've all been in, right? It's the golden truth of any business is that you listen to your customers, they're changing, you respond to them. And this business has been created on that listen and respond. And we're moving to let's understand and let's shape the experiences. Don't let there be a bad experience. Let's get ahead of it. Let's shape the experiences. We are in the era with enough data and enough knowledge and enough compute that we can shape every customer's experience to get what? To get a 10. To get a 10. To get the best. For every experience to be elevated to the best it could possibly be. And that's what we're shooting for. This is what Medallia does. This is what we would call a marketecture slide. It's architecture and marketing combined, and this is everything that Medallia does. It's a lot of stuff. Running a business, dealing with customers and employees is complicated stuff. You don't need to worry about any of this. We got this. Medallia's got this. Our goal is to take this complicated environment, your business, each and every one of your businesses, and simplify it. Simplify it so you can execute every day. Here's some examples. We're not going to go into all these examples. I'm just going to tell you that previous slide of make more money, reduce costs, increase profit, do it more efficiently and effectively at less risk, these brands have participated in, right? You're looking at some pretty big brands here. Walmart, largest company in the world from a revenue standpoint, all the way over to DHL, who operates in so many countries with so many transactions, such a complicated business, simplified with Medallia. All right, so I'm going to leave you with this because once again, this is one of our chief product officer created this slide, and I love it. Here's why I love it. Because we are constantly trying make technology help us in life. We're constantly building technologies to make our lives easier, to make us more effective, more efficient. And so when Fabrice uses this analogy of we're building the nervous system of experience, I love it. Here's why I love it. Because I've studied this. I've studied the biology. And humans, right, people, what do? We gather data. We gather a lot of data. One of the primary ways we gather data is with these two things right here, our eyes. They're part of our brain. We have a tremendous eyesight. We can see in millions of colors. Our peripheral vision is unbelievable. We can process this data that we see, right? And what we do with that is we create insights. So the word insights, do you know where that comes from? It really means inner sight, inner. Like think about you're taking in data this way, we'll flip that around, and that's imprinting on your neurocortex. It's imprinting on your brain. That's the insights. So you're taking in the outside world, you're internalizing it, and you're creating insights with a lot of brain power. And then we take action. We do this every day. If I told you to go walk through that door, you're going to look at that door, you're going to say, okay, I'm getting closer to it, I'm getting closer to it. It looks like maybe it's on a hinge. I think the insight is if I push on that door, it's going to open, and it's going to open into a new world, and I'm going to explore that world. And that's what we're doing. Our technology mimics this, right? That's what we're trying to do, is have technology that helps make a symphony between people and technology. A symphony, a concert, works together. We've heard about from Rob, working together, that AI is going to enable all of us. We believe that as well. So let's create that music together. Let's create some stories together. Let's make it happen now. My name is Mike Debnar. Thank you so much for having me today. It's been a pleasure.